I was almost stripped naked by my divorce. Of course, Anne and the kids got our house, a generous alimony for me, and our biggest car. I got to keep the dog. She never liked it anyway. Instead, it gave her allergies. It was reckless to indulge B1 and B2. Anne hated that I referred to them as the bananas and pajamas, even though it's hilarious, when they begged for a puppy. As soon as our pet grew up, they didn't want anything to do with it. Sierra was a good, well-behaved dog and never liked the ruckus that little children usually create. We ended up bonding. So there I was, my whole life in a few boxes and a transportation cage, moving to a small apartment after spending a few weeks with my parents. My inveterate single friends congratulated me for being free. But the truth was, I still loved Anne. I loved her so much, but life gets in the way of romance. In our case, it was parenthood. We've got to have two. She would fantasize years earlier, wine lips and a smile brighter than Times Square at night. If one of them ends up as a struggling artist, the other one can still be a lawyer or a doctor. I can't believe you're thinking that far ahead, you goofball, I replied, kissing her eyelids and then all over her face. Of course I am. I can't wait to grow older together and see our children as adults. She ran her fingers through my chest. And they have to be only 1 year apart too, so they can be close and the older can teach the younger everything. Preferably 2 boys. One that looks like me and one that looks like you. I'm ready for this life, Ben. I wasn't sure that I was. But that's what you do when you're in your early 30s, right? You have children. You work your ass off for them. Become dad and mom instead of husband and wife. Also, in 20 to 25 years when they're all grown up and independent, you can feel accomplished. Probably. When the woman you love the most you ever loved in your life is all flushed cheeks and giggles from light inebriation, and she asked you to make a baby on her, you do it. I'll never forget Anne's laughter of happiness a while later, when she saw the 2 lines in the pregnancy test. The way she glowed all through those months while B1 grew inside of her. How beautiful her skin was, how enhanced her libido was, how for a while, everything felt like a good dream. Things went smoothly on her first pregnancy, except for the occasional morning sickness. Just like we had planned, she left her job at around 6 months so she could focus on herself, on baby-proofing the house, decorating B1's bedroom, buying his little clothes. His birth was a breeze. He'll be such an easy kid, she predicted when she first held B1 on her arms. B1 looked so much like her, big green eyes and a head already full of dark blonde hair. He wasn't. The first 5 months were relatively fine. It's what people usually call the hardest part. No sleepless nights for me, and since Anne took the habit of sleeping during the day whenever B1 did, she had no problem of getting up in the middle of the night. Of course, all she could talk about back then was the baby, but I thought it was a momentary thing. There wasn't a lot going on in her life. She spent every day with B1 at home, and it was all new. I thought her beautiful personality would soon reemerge from under the poop and puke talk. It was because things were going fine that I was almost unreluctant to get her pregnant again. As soon as she confirmed her second positive, B1 started changing. He became a difficult, easily agitated baby. He would scratch us, even punch us, although a small fist hardly caused any pain. It's just the little teeth growing, Anne explained, unfazed. It wasn't. It was like B1 knew he was going to stop being the only one too soon, and he didn't like it. During Anne's second pregnancy, B1 was almost unbearable. Her mother, sister, and cousins took turns helping out because our first kid was a total handful, screaming the whole time and always having to go to the hospital for mysterious reasons. When she was 3 months pregnant, I suggested getting an abortion. B1's health was bad. Her health was bad. Her second pregnancy was being the polar opposite of the first. She refused vehemently. I think that's when she first started resenting me. As her pregnancy progressed, B1 kicked her belly constantly, like a 10-month-old baby knew how to reject his new brother, and he did it with fury and gusto. By then, Anne was a wreck, even with all the support from her family, and I was miserable too. We started being awful to one another. Of course, we would apologize and say things would get better in 1 year or two, but they also didn't. 1-year-old B1 and newborn B2 were a handful. Anne couldn't handle them. Her family's help wasn't enough, and I had to start doing home office so we could have all hands on deck. We had 2 boys after all, one that looked like her and one that looked like me, just like she had wanted. But she wasn't as happy as she thought she would be. 2 years old B1 and 1-year-old B2 screamed the whole time, threw food at each other. I swear to God, there wasn't a single second of silence every day, the whole day. We grew apart as she justified their actions with, and they'll soon grow out of it. 3 years old, B1 was diagnosed with a degenerative brain disease. And to put it bluntly, he would end up as a retarded and needy adult. He would never stop being a toddler mentally. 4 years old B1 almost killed his brother by throwing a baby chair against him during a tantrum. Supposedly, his tantrums were not his fault because his brain was underdeveloped. B2 was hospitalized for months and nearly blinded on his right eye. His little face ended up deformed too. I admit it was sickening to look at him, with a malfunctioning eye and a horrible lump on the other side of his head. Maybe you should homeschool them so B2 won't be bullied, but B1 too. You know how far his brain will develop, my sister-in-law remarked. We both sighed deeply. I think we thought the same thing. Won't I ever get a break from those kids? Babysitters wouldn't last, of course. No me time for us. We couldn't even go to couples therapy for 1 hour a week because the boys made Anne's mom cry until she couldn't bear to watch them for us anymore. B2 started hating B1 back with a passion. They were constantly hurting each other physically, and B2 started hurting other living things too. At first, he would just step on flowers and on his aunt's vegetable garden, squeezing all the plants under his feet. Then it was worms. He would dig around the yard for hours using twigs he cut earthworms into, and then more little pieces. B2 smiled pleasurably as the innocent vermins helplessly wiggled to death. Anne didn't mind because she desperately needed a break from at least one of them, and it kept him occupied. Crushing plants and worms soon progressed to breaking the other wing of a hurt bird, and then mutilating one little leg of our neighbor's guinea pig. And Anne gave that little monster a dog. A freaking dog. She said B2 was too young to know better, and with a bigger animal, he would learn how all lives are important. Oh boy. I don't want to describe the abuse that the two of them, B1 and B2, put Sierra through. I swear to God, I tried educating those awful boys. I swear to God Anne did the best she could, even though her view on parenting was absolutely revolting to me. After spending $600 on vet bills to fix what they had done and deciding to lock Sierra in my office for the dog's safety, Anne and I fought. I was so absolutely disgusted and mad. I hit her in the face. One hit, like she had done to me many times. But something broke there. Something probably unfixable. Unless... In a matter of weeks, we were signing papers for the divorce attorney, as B1 and B2 ran around like crazy in the reception room. I agreed to give Anne everything she wanted, but I didn't want to have anything to do with the kids. "Please, Benedict, take them at least one Saturday every 2 weeks," she begged. "They're my children and I love them, but they're awful and I need a break every now and then." I had to agree. The despair in her eyes destroyed me. Over the last 6 years, she had grown so old, so battered in the soul, and I knew I was like that too. I barely dared looking at my face in the mirror anymore, averting my own defeated gaze as I quickly combed my hair. Anne knew that none of them would grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer. Hell, not even a lazy and not particularly skilled musician living with 5 roommates until age 30, and thinking it was just a matter of time until he made it. And they were so much worse. The future was incredibly dark for our family, and so I dropped my boxes inside my new studio apartment, fed Sierra, and ordered the greasiest food that I could think of. I binge-watched 90 sitcoms and I drank myself to sleep. And then I woke up in the body of my dog. Of course, I thought I was terribly high at first, but no, I wasn't even hungover, and my body, my human body, slept soundly in the bed. Except I saw plenty of things that weren't previously there, right above the head of my original body. My vision was black and white, but also clearer than ever. It was some sort of mental clarity rather than physical. As I looked to me, to Benedict Garland, I saw all of my wrongdoings, past, present, and future. I saw myself stealing from my parents, cheating on girlfriends, lying to friends. While I don't think that I deserve the ordeal that B1 and B2 put me through daily, I knew I wasn't exactly a good person. I saw myself giving a fake number to a guy whose car I damaged on an accident and I never paid. I saw myself covering for my brother when he decided to abandon his fiancée, taking all their shared money with him. I saw myself giving my boss a hand job for a promotion. I saw sins of mine that I thought remained uncovered, but Sierra knew. I saw myself hitting Anne in the face during that horrible fight. I saw my future self lying to my parents to get their hard-earned assets, and God, I know I will. We are who we are and the future is unchanging. No wonder all the other dogs always bark angrily at me. I suck and they know it. I decided to use my dog body to take a walk around the building as my original body still slept. I saw these sins of the doorman, on a sham marriage while he cheated on his wife with anonymous men in public bathrooms, him beating a homeless man for calling him a fag, him gambling too much money behind his poor wife's back. Sierra never really liked him, and I was surprised at myself when my mouth let out a bark in his direction. He ignored me. Sarah, my new next-door neighbor, stopped and crouched to pet me. I saw her wrongdoings, but they were all too minor. Lying to her parents to see a boyfriend, being too honest when her friend had a horrible new haircut, and making said friend cry. Pretending to be sick to skip work and actually going to a concert. A little shoplifting. I saw why Sierra liked her overall. She was a pure person. While the doorman and myself had easily 1,000 sins, hers didn't count 3 dozens. And then I saw them crossing the street to come see me. Anne and my children. My horrible children. Their future was so dark I felt vertigo. His illness didn't keep B1 from being a terrible man, only made everyone indulge him. Among many, many other things, I saw him beat Anne half to death, and he looked only 16. Until today, her wrongs were all self-harm. Boy, has she cut her wrist lately. But in the future, ashamed to have her name dragged in the mud, she changes. she covers for the many crimes of her sons. B2 turned out to be a child kidnapper. As a silver lining to Anne, he did turn out to be a lawyer, a cruel corporate one, with many sins related to his job despite his cruelty. He is smart after all. My canine body acted on its own, and I barked at them as I fled back home, terrified. And then after a little moment of blur, I woke up in my own body, with Sierra licking my ear. Sierra never barked angrily at me. Never. It could only mean that, knowing my sins, she forgave me for them. She even understood or indulged some. And that was all the confirmation that I needed. The two beasts invaded my apartment loudly, with Anne apologizing. She had an emergency that day and no one else could be with the boys. All things considered, I can't blame her family for abandoning the boat. I told Anne not to worry, that I was planning a camping trip with Sierra, and it was a great moment to try bonding with the boys. The realization that her sons were awful and that she was now alone with them was starting to dawn scarily upon her. She gave me a half smile where I could read relief but disbelief, and that we could possibly spend some quality father and son time together. Of course, she didn't know the new beginning that I had planned for us. She didn't know that as soon as we made it out into the woods, I would kick one of the little monsters, B2, the worst and most violent of them, down the waterfall, making sure that he hit his head on a boulder, and then quickly grab B1 by the neck, squeezing the life out of him. He kicked and screamed during a few minutes, and for the last time. I then drew my camping knife from my pocket, and absent-mindedly started flaying him to give them to my good girl Sierra. We came back a few days later, just me and the dog, after some quality father and canine daughter time in the quiet forest. I immediately told the authorities how one of my boys fell and the other one disappeared in the middle of the night to search for his beloved brother. No one that knew them could believe my story, but no one dared say anything. Everyone around us, relatives, neighbors, and our few friends, had suffered because of our monster children. After being comforted by the sheriff for my loss, when Anne and I were alone, she smiled fully and brightly for the first time in 6 years. Ever since, all the dogs have stopped barking at me,